I can see all three of you.
I will be able to see you when I get my script out of the way. I got an opening script.
Gotcha.
And we're live, guys.
Hey, good evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sharla Hildner, chairman of the Comanche County Republican Party, and I'm grateful to be here today to briefly talk about our recent superintendent forum. First, thank you, Rarchar from Cleveland County, for hosting this conversation and providing this platform to share what took place. And a sincere thank you to Dr. Lisa Pleasant for moderating the forum. She did an outstanding job guiding a professional and substantive discussion among the candidates. And we just wanted to jump on here for a few minutes to recap why we hosted the forum, what voters heard, and why this race matters for state superintendent is so important to Oklahoma's future. So let's get into it.
Hello, ladies. How are you doing tonight?
Outstanding.
Lisa, I haven't seen you in about 3.5 months. So what are you up to?
So same old. Trying to change the world one kid at a time, and just teaching and trying to motivate people to get out and vote and get to know the candidates, get to know what's going on in our community, because a lot of people probably are like I used to be, where I thought that my voice didn't count, that my vote didn't count, but it definitely does. And every time that I speak to someone, I just want to inform them and get them to be a self advocate.
Well, that's a great idea. You know what? I watched your forum last week, and I have to say that was a class act. And I have to give it up to you, Sharla. Out of all the county chairs in Oklahoma, I think by far you and Kayla are the most active. I've seen what you post. Um, I'm impressed by the forums you've had, the events you've had in the county. By far, this should be the example for everyone to follow. So I don't give out nice or pleasantries real easy. If anybody knows me, you have
Well,
to
thank
earn
you.
it. And I
Thank you.
think
No, I take this role seriously. It's a commitment, and I'm just doing what I think that everybody else would want in a chair. You want to be informed, and we're kind of tucked away down here in Southwest Oklahoma. We don't have the access to Oklahoma City and Tulsa to see candidates and get involved as much as you guys can, being closer to the capital. So I try to bring it closer to Southwest Oklahoma as much as I can.
well, you're doing a terrific job, whatever it is. I
Thank
think
you.
you guys should have Oklahoma chair meeting, whatever chat group, and say, "This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing." If I had the time, I'd showcase your entire website, but and your Facebook page too as well. I'm just saying that I'm very impressed at the activity you guys are having, and it's not to say that any other county is not having that same level of activity. I think East Stevens County's Facebook page might be the same too as well. I just know that from our interaction, you and I have collaborated a lot, especially regarding State Question 836. And from what I've seen, Oklahoma County and now Comanche County, I've worked with both of the chairs to get the word out on 836, and we've done joint projects together. But I wanted to say the state superintendent's forum you guys held last week, I think that was a knock out of the park event. And I don't know whose idea it was, if it was Sharla or you, Lisa, or if it was a joint. But Charlotte, tell me how you guys decided to set it up the way you did, and then we'll go to Lisa, and she can explain why she did it the way she did. How about that?
Well, I get these crazy ideas, and I think I'm pretty good at dreaming them up. And I'm fortunate to have talented friends that to recruit and say, "Hey, this is a great idea." And so Dr. Lisa and I go to church together, and we're friends. And she's been sharing with me some of the ideas that she's wanting to change in the classroom. And I was like, "Well, there's no better time than now. We can get before your next boss. Let's just go ahead and showcase their skills, what they're about, and remind the voters they have a voice in this."
Mhm.
Now, said you mentioned get in front of your bosses. Are you saying? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It's a big idea, the concept. So, are the voters the boss?
So they are. They absolutely are. And when Sharla asked me to moderate, at first I was honored because it was my first time moderating. And I'm very passionate about having a stake in the action, having a voice. And I don't like things to happen to me. I want to be part of, of the solution and not the problem. And so you mentioned how did we set it up? Well, interestingly enough, I think even Charla might have been a little surprised because at the very last minute I said, you know what? I'm going to go full blown teacher on them. And so, not to set anybody up, but if you want to be our boss, if you want to lead us teachers, then I think you should be able to think like a teacher and be able to do what you're asking us to do. So, for example, teachers are asked to pivot in a moment's notice. It doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter that we have lesson plans and curriculum in front of us. Something happens, we have to pivot. Meaning, if we have a disturbance in the classroom because of behavior, we have to pivot. If at the last minute somebody decides to throw a pepper rally, we have to pivot. We have to pivot and we have to do it with grace. And so I decided to test, I guess, do a
Mhm.
litmus test on our candidates. And I wanted to see, can they pivot like what they're requesting us to do? And so one of the things that I've been seeing in the forums is candidates get 2 minutes to answer questions. And that's great, but we gave them questions ahead of schedule. So it's the same thing if a student, if I give you the material ahead of schedule, I want you to have a basic knowledge of the material that I gave you. And I want you to be able to talk about it intelligently and take the fluff out of it. Because when I have my students in front of me, I tell them, okay, what did you learn? Right? One of my favorite things when kids don't know, I tell them, tell me what you don't know, tell me what you know, and then tell me why you don't know what you don't know. Tell me. And so I'm always pushing critical thinking on students. So that's kind of a little bit what we did. We brought down the questions to 1 minute, those that had been previewed.
Mhm.
Then we gave 2 minutes for the on the spot questions because we believe that our bosses should be able to have their plan concrete already. So I want to know, are you making it up as you're going, or do you absolutely believe what you're going to come and do for us?
Now,
Oklahoma
let me
is
break in
yes.
real quick here. Hey, Charlotte, were you aware of this forum setup, or was it? Did you guys discuss how the forum was going to be run?
So I told Lisa I would set it up, and then I gave her full discretion on the questions she was going to ask and the format. We did talk a little bit about it because I did send 10 questions to each candidate prior to, so
Hmm.
they would have them and study and be ready for their answers. And then I think I may have found out the day of, or maybe it was the day before, that she was going to ask, excuse me, 2 or 3 questions that were not on that questionnaire. And I thought it was a great idea. It was a great opportunity to see how they would respond.
And
You know,
the quick three on the spot questions, Charlotte didn't even know the on the spot
Yeah.
questions.
I told her I did not want to know. I wanted to get the raw reaction, just like the audience. Yeah.
so I was traveling and I was going from place to place in DC, and so I lost connectivity. Then I logged back in, and you're gonna have to explain this to us, Lisa. I saw that John Cox stand up and say, "Can I have my 2 minutes now?" So what was that about, and why did he mention 2 minutes? So just for the audience to listen to, so why did he stand up? I mean, was he
So
joking?
so yeah, so it was, I think it was in joking. However, the microphones were set up a certain way. Every
Mm,
candidate had a microphone. Now, we have like we have interruptions like we do in the classroom at all times, right? The mics at one point they didn't turn on fast enough
mhm.
and the candidates started swapping microphones. So they threw off the mic system. And so
Mm.
now when we gave the 1 minute and the minute was over and I would say thank you and someone kept talking, my tech couldn't shut them down. So they kept talking. So I think that's what Dr. Cox was doing, saying, hey, can I get my 2 minutes? Because somebody ran into his time. And so I think that all the candidates were set back a little bit because they didn't have enough time to really get out what they wanted to say. But that was exactly my point. I wanted to know, can you be concise and still get your point across? Because we only have 45 minutes to teach, and we get interrupted left and right, so we have to cut the fluff, and we got to get to the meat and potatoes. So that's what I wanted to happen in the forum.
All right, let me pivot to Charlotte here. So as far as the questions go, which question um, got the most response from the audience? Was there okay? So did you allow the audience to like clap after, or did you just ask everyone to remain silent? Let's start there.
We didn't really ask, but we didn't really have a whole lot of audience feedback or participation. I think the question that seemed to be common, because I was looking for questions online and people were texting me questions. And then I also heard we had a a reporter from the Lawton Crier that wanted to interview the candidates. And I walked by and I heard him asking one of the questions that I wanted to know. And that was the question about downsizing the superintendents and the payroll that they have. And so that got asked, I think, in different formats and different ways, but it got asked several times. And so people seem to be really eager to want to know how to do that. I thought it was interesting that
Hmm.
Adam Pugh mentioned that there is a $10 million pot of money to incentivize the schools to try to reduce that bloat in the superintendent wages. And so I'd like to hear the candidates talking more about that and how to do that, because people, we might not understand on this level. We think that it's all coming from this pot of money from the capital, from Oklahoma City. But I guess, really, when you stop and think about it, I guess the school districts are funding their superintendents. But there's seems to be a lot of question. We're from, I don't know how many. Yeah, I'm an '80s baby. I graduated in the '80s, and I don't remember us having that, the admin being so heavy in the school systems like I seem to be now. And I think parents want to know why.
Well, that's a good question. I think we do know that we are top heavy, and we'd like the next superintendent to look at that and work with the state legislature to see if we can reduce the number of superintendents across the state. I think there's one superintendent for every county or something ridiculous, and that money can be better spent in the classrooms. My daughter's mother is a teacher, and quite often enough, she has to spend her own money sometimes to get some of the things that she can't cover at the end of the year or going towards the end of the year. So I think that's something that should be looked at. And I think the next superintendent needs to work with the state, at the Capitol to see where and how that has to happen. Now, Lisa, I'm going to ask you a question. Starting with the candidates, we'll start with Dr. John Cox, and we'll go down the line. What was the strongest thing with him? And then we'll do Tony, and then Adam, and then James.
So if I can just chime in, just in the previous conversation about reducing the number of superintendents,
Mhm.
so one of the things that was, and Sharla, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things that was said was it's not at the superintendent level, it's not at the governor level, and it's not at the legislators level. They said it was at the people's level, that we needed to, if we wanted to have less superintendents, it had to start in our community. So I just want to pinpoint that it was echoed several times, that because I asked a clarifying question, because when the question was asked, they started talking about reducing principals. That wasn't the question.
Mhm.
Mind you, some schools may have an excess of principals, but the question was, we have 512 superintendents in the state of Oklahoma, and we pay anywhere from 45 to 60 million dollars in salaries.
Let me ask you
So
a
can
question.
someone? Mhm.
Listen, let me jump in. Was that a question you guys asked each
Yes,
candidate? Okay, so
yes.
let's start with John Cox then, and then we'll go to Charlotte for Tony and back and forth. What was John Cox's answer to that question?
So he acknowledged that there is excess, but he also made mention that uh, particular decision was left to the community, to the school boards, to us, the people. And so that's where I was like, okay, well, that's great to know. If it's left up to us, then we, the people, need to figure out if we want that many superintendents, or can we reduce it and bring some of that money back. So I can tell you that Dr. Cox was very poised. He definitely knows what he's talking about because he is a superintendent right now. And
Absolutely.
so he deals with it, with this in and out. And so he had good answers. And I just have to say, all of the candidates were very well poised, and I think that we have great representation. At the end
Mm,
of the day, people are going to have to make their decision. They're going to have to go to the forums, or they're going to have to listen to the recordings of the forums and really pay attention and do their homework. Who do they think is going to bring the biggest change to Oklahoma? And like I
good
said,
points.
Dr. Cox knew what he was talking about, in my opinion.
Okay. Sharla, Tony, what about Tony?
I think,
Strongest.
again, I want to say, echo what she just said. I think that we're very fortunate to have four very skilled people running. It's going to be a hard decision for the voters when it comes time to go to the primaries. One of the strengths I think that Tony showed was that she has 20 plus years in the classroom. And so, and in legislation. So she has that unique perspective of what goes
Mm.
on in the legislation and in the classroom. And I think that's what she brings to the table.
Lisa, what's your thoughts on Adam?
Senator Pugh, again, extremely well poised. He's very polished. He knows the ins and out from the legislation side. He knows what it takes to get a bill to go to a law. He's in the mix right now, and I thought Senator Pugh was able to answer questions flawlessly. And I believe that he has children in the public school system, so he has
Hmm.
a firsthand knowledge of what his children are encountering in public schools. So that's a big plus as well.
All right. Dr. James Taylor, Sharla, his strongest answer, question.
This is my first time meeting Dr. Taylor, but I get the impression that he really connects with his students on their level. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. You know,
He knows what they're going through. He knows what it's like the day in and day out of the classroom.
yeah,
He's in the trenches right now as
Yeah.
a
he
teacher,
is,
so
and
he
he's a preacher
absolutely knows.
too on
Yes,
Sundays. I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys knew that too, but he preached.
yes.
He had a church here in Norman, and I think he moved it back to either Moore or South Oklahoma City. Really good guy. In fact, the only two people I have not met is Tony. I met Senator Pugh a couple of months ago at a filming that I was running in Oklahoma County. But I would agree with everybody. We have good candidates running on our side, and it's up to the people to decide which one resonates with them the most. You know, and it's a
Yes.
hard choice between all four. I thought they all gave great answers. You know, they were funny. They were, you know, the ones that I did listen to when I could gave straightforward answers. But the one that I was most interested in was when you guys asked State Question 836. Um, Sharla, I mean, were you pretty satisfied with the responses from everybody regarding 836?
I was, and I was glad to hear it. And I'm glad that Lisa asked it. It was important that we get it out there. But I'm glad to hear that all four of the candidates believe that the we need to stay with closed primaries.
Lisa, did you ask that question based off a viewer, or did you plan to ask that question?
A viewer sent the question. So just to preface a little bit, we ran a mini marketing campaign asking viewers to send in their questions. And so we regrettably we got so many questions the day of, and we had already formatted the questions, sent them out to the candidates. We also had printed the questions for the participants. So when you walk into our forum, you walked into my classroom. So you saw the different strategies that I use as a teacher. So every participant had a participant guide. So they were aware of what was being asked. They also were given pencils and or pens, and they could write down their notes. So if they wanted to ask clarifying questions, they also could. Um, the candidates at any point, they were always asked, do you need me to repeat the question, even though they had the questions in front of them? Because
Right.
that is a modification that we have for our IEP kids, for our ESL kids, and any child that needs just a little bit more support. So we actually brought the participants into a classroom as students. And so the questions were sent in, and we were really happy that we had that participation.
Awesome. Both of you guys, you can answer. I'll start with Sharla. Were there any questions that weren't asked that you wanted to be asked? Sharla,
Oh, I wish you would have asked me that. So I had,
you're the boss.
I know. And I was really trying that day up because I was when you were getting in the mix of it. I was like, oh, I wonder if she's going to ask this. I really wanted to, but I knew she already had her script. You know that this.
Oh, we lost audio.
We lost audio for
Sharla.
Charlotte.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
sorry. I don't know that I'm satisfied with Senator Pugh's his response to whether or not he can run, or he should be running. I gave him a minute to because that was really coming through the question was really coming blowing out my phone, and so
Mm.
I asked him if there's some question whether or not that he can run legally with the Oklahoma Constitution, seeing that he is a midterm senator. Um, I'm sure that he cleared it through legal before he even got on this campaign, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know that I was satisfied with his response on that.
Mm. Lisa,
So
any questions?
yes, yes, and I know that this one was me. It was a personal question that I had, but I did not want to hijack the forum by making it a Lisa forum. I wanted to make sure that the audience got their questions out.
Mm.
But my question, if we had had more time, I would have asked our next superintendent doesn't create laws. And I believe that Dr. Cox was very specific about that, if I'm not mistaken, that he said, we don't create the laws, but we advocate. So my question for all of them was going to be, how well are you going to advocate for us? Because every time a law comes through, there's no money attached to it for additional resources.
Mhm.
So they want us to do the job, but they're not giving us more resources. If you
Mm.
go back and look at a lot of things that I'm advocating for, it's our reading levels, right? We have children reading way below their reading level. And the question is, when are we getting the reading coaches? Because right now, as it stands, forgive me, I have to talk about my district. We don't have enough reading coaches, and so I'm a language specialist. I am well trained in ESL. I am an ELA teacher. I am a Spanish teacher. I'm a technology teacher. I'm a business teacher. Nowhere in there do I have a reading certificate. Now, I am doing the best that I can because when I ask for reading coaches from the district, I get nothing.
Mm.
But my kids are still struggling. My kids are still drowning. So now I am for putting together any law that calls for an increased rigor in reading. My question is, show me the money. Don't make me get Jerry Maguire on you. Show me the money, right? I need the reading coaches. And
Hey,
I wanted to
can you
ask, are
stand
you
up and say that though? Can Lisa stand up and say that? If you're going to reference a movie, you have to
I know
reference the movie.
I should, but he might sue me because I do it so well. So I want to make sure I don't get sued.
I
but
like teachers. Well, if
but
you watch
no,
the movie,
it
you would
is.
get that.
So I just want to know. I wanted to know: Are you bringing back the reading classes in middle school and high school? And are you giving us reading coaches? And I want to know if our superintendent is going to go and bat for us and talk to our legislators and say, I see this bill is going through. Where is the fiscal attachment to it?
Mm.
And so I wish I could have dove more into that because really, when we talk about money, a lot of people equate it to give teachers more pay. Of course, we wouldn't say no, but we're really asking for the resources for the classroom. We need more certified teachers in their area because we have to meet our students at their point of need. No shame, no blame. If you're reading at the third grade level, that's okay. Let me meet you at that third grade level because I don't have the luxury of time and I have to get you where you need to go because very soon my state test is going to show that we don't know how to read. And really, it's not really even that Oklahoma can't read. Oklahoma can read. It's just the pocket of kids in different programs, they weigh more. The fact that we test every child regardless. Other states may not.
Hmm.
But because remember, I taught in Texas and I taught in New Mexico.
I'm going to pivot to Sharla. Sharla, the biggest question that I get asked, in my personal opinion, is that what are they going to do about us being 50th? I want to hear, this is what I want to hear. I want to hear a candidate that says, okay, here's my plan to take us from 50th to 40th in my first term. Okay, so did any candidate explain the path forward? I think that's the most important thing for parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts for their kids is how do we get, and of course, with us jumping from 50th to 40th, that means test scores are a lot better. The schools are also a lot better, but it's mainly based off test scores. Which candidate resonated that, if you can say, or did you guys even ask that question? How do we get from 50th to 40th?
No, and it's a really good question. But not only should we be asking the superintendent that, if you listen to the gubernatorial forum and more the other night, every candidate said they're all referring to the Mississippi, uh, the Mississippi and Oklahoma at the same time, I guess, went backwards on their reading, and the Mississippi said stop, and they went forward, and we kind of hung out here, and now we're 49, we're 50. You hear all of them say, well, depending on what metrics you're using, we're not exactly 50th. So, I think we're all just saying, BS to all of that. We are down here in the gutter with our reading levels and our education. And all the candidates are saying, they're talking about bringing back our reading programs, but I hope that they hear what Dr. Pleasant is saying, because a lot of them are saying what we want to hear, but no one is giving us that path forward. I want to hear the details. So anybody out there listening, if you're going to be hosting another gubernatorial forum, or if you're going to be hosting another superintendent forum, get to the meat and potatoes of it. What is the path? And I hope the governors and the superintendents hear what Dr. Lisa is saying. She's saying what is with the reality in the classroom. Where are the reading coaches? We can all talk and say the things everybody wants to hear, but what are we really going to do?
You know what? So we are holding. So the 28th February, the OK GOP has their forum, and then my organization is holding one on April 30th, and I'll be sure to make sure that question is asked. I think that's one of the most important questions, and to explain the mechanics behind. I've heard that we're not really 50th, but explain that to the parents, explain that to the public, why and what the true rating is, and why aren't we, you know, the inconsistency needs to be explained. Now, Charlotte, we're at the 30-minute mark here. What events do you guys have planned for Comanche County in the next week?
Well, we're hosting every third Tuesday. We have a GOP luncheon and a GOP meeting in that evening, and it always includes a gubernatorial candidate and then other candidates that are running for. They'll be in the primaries in June. So next month, I believe we're hosting Mike Mazie. April we have Jake Merrick, and in May we have Chip Keating, and that pretty much concludes all of the candidates. They've made their way down here to Comanche County. But I do want to add one more thing before we go, because I think it's important. Another thing I think we should ask and get to is we need to audit our schools. Yeah, I think we've all saw that Tulsa Public Schools got audited, and I think Cindy Burgess did an audit. Was it Tulsa Public Schools that she audited? But I think that all the schools, it's time for them to have a good audit and let us know what's going on in our local schools.
I
And
would agree.
I'll second that. As a teacher, I can tell you, as also as a veteran, prior military, we always say you inspect what you expect. If you
Right.
don't inspect it, you cannot expect it from me. right? As a matter of fact, like during walkthroughs, I tell my admins, don't tell me when you're coming. Don't tell me. You should inspect that I expect you being in my classroom at any given time, and I should be bringing you my A game, because if you tell me you're coming Tuesday at 2 o'clock, as good as I am, I'm going to put on a dog and pony show for you, because I'm human, right? And so we absolutely need that inspections. I think that we need to be fully transparent, and we also need to really work with the community, the parents, because at the end of the day, even if someone is in the community and you don't have a kid in school, that kid is going to end up working in your community or eventually in your military.
Well,
And
we'll
you
you
tell
know
me,
we will fix them in the military. So so we have the IG for that, and we have command structure, and we
but we
have
don't have
tons.
reading courses.
The Air Force. Look, if you can pass the ASVAB test, you'll be fine.
Well,
Okay.
that is
So
true. That is true.
you brought up a military reference, and so we do have our inspector general, and we basically grade you off what you're supposed to do. Okay,
Hmm.
and there's no dog and pony on those things. I mean, you can't fake your way through that. Maybe we need something like that. Maybe we need an educational inspector general to come down and, hey, surprise, I'm here, show me your book, show me what you're doing, and just do that. Because if they expect that, I mean, it's not really oversight or overreach on behalf of the state superintendent, but like you guys said, the parents. Look, I think one of your candidates said this the best. Dr. Cox said that he wanted parents and teachers to work together.
Hmm.
And coming out of COVID, learning what we did learn about the schools, and what they were actually teaching, and how parents got really involved. I think the most successful school districts had that relationship, and there was a lot of contentious behavior between the teachers and the parents, and
Yes.
rightfully so. On the parent side, they did not appreciate what was being taught after sitting in during COVID on those streams, the Zoom calls, the Zoom classrooms here. And so the parents did what they thought was right and started pushing back on the teachers. Go back to education. Stop the indoctrination. Keep your opinion to yourself. There's always a saying that if you know the affiliation of your if their students know the affiliation of their teachers, then they're bad teachers. Go to school, teach them what they need to know to become
Yes.
productive adults, and keep all the other bullshit out of the schools. We're going to have to leave it at this part. Sharla, Comanche County GOP, you are doing a tremendous job. I
Thank
want to
you.
applaud you, because the direction and the trajectory of a county heavily depends on a strong and active chairman. And I have to give you credit where credit is due. You are doing what you're supposed to do. Maybe next year we can see the numbers of how fast and how much you've grown as far as registration is concerned for Republicans, or how many people show up to your meetings. But just by your postings and your events, um, you're doing what needs to be done. And
Hey, I'd
so
be glad if nobody shows up to a meeting, if they just get out and vote and show up
Yes.
the primary, show up at the
that's
booth.
that's the most important thing. And how do they get up? So I think the most vexing thing for most Republicans, and maybe in the Democrats too, is which candidate do you choose? And we have a lot of Republicans running for one spot, and it's these forums like this, when you can have them all together and ask them the same questions, and see how the audience reacts. I think the biggest takeaway from the audience, and who had the show, was the crying baby in someone's cell phone.
Oh, he's our little GOP mascot, though. I have that's he.
he
I've watched
was
that baby grow up, and he's our GOP mascot.
he was like, it's this question, and then someone's cell phone, man. It's well, anyways, Lisa, it was nice seeing you again, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Likewise.
Thank you for visiting us a couple months ago here in Norman. I know Dr. Kish enjoyed that dinner with you and your husband. And with that, I'm going to end the first podcast for the Comanche County GOP.
Woohoo!
It was truly an honor having me on, and look forward to doing many more of these.
Thank you,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Appreciate y'all. Have a good evening.
Bye bye.
Bye.